As we all know, Formula 1 is an extremely technical sport full of rules and regulations. The rules are ever changing and evolving, but sometimes the rule makers just make rules that are bound to flop or that are just plain weird. In this video, I am going to go over some of F1's weirdest rules. We are all used to the current qualifying format where 5 cars get eliminated in Q1, 5 in Q2, and then Q3 acts as a top 10 shootout, and this format works great. But in 2016, in a bid to spice up qualifying, Formula 1 introduced knockout qualifying. This was how it worked. The first segment lasted 16 minutes, and after 7 minutes, the slowest driver took no further part in the session. Every 90 seconds after that, the slowest driver was knocked out, until there were only 15 drivers remaining. A 15-minute segment followed after that with a similar pattern, the slowest driver eliminated after 6 minutes and then a further driver knocked out at 90-second intervals until there were 10 left. Then there would be a last segment which was 14 minutes with the knockouts beginning after 5 minutes every 90 seconds until there were 2 drivers remaining to fight it out for pole position. Safe to say that this format backfired as it was dropped after 2 rounds and F1 went back to the format that we all know today. We all want a close championship fight that goes all the way to the final round, and so in 2014, in a bid to keep the championship going until the final round, Formula 1 introduced double points for the final round in Abu Dhabi. As a result of the double points offered for the race, Lewis Hamilton needed to finish in the top 2 to guarantee the championship. Under the regular point structure, he would have only needed to finish 6th to guarantee the title. This format was negatively received by universally everyone and dropped for the following year. Pit stops are an integral part of F1, but what if you couldn't change your tyres during the race? Well, in 2005, drivers had to use the same set of tyres during qualifying and the race. Tyres were only allowed for punctures and for wet weather. This caused many problems. First, it hampered all the Bridgestone runners like Ferrari massively because Bridgestone couldn't develop the tyre to last the whole race the same way that the Michelins could. Second, it created unnecessary safety issues like this incident for Kimi Räikkönen at the Nürburgring. Lastly, the 2005 United States Grand Prix, where the rule where they couldn't change the tyres caused more problems than it should have, as Michelin's tyres couldn't last the whole race due to the banking, and because you couldn't pit, they were all pretty much forced to pull out. Every point matters in F1, but this wasn't quite the case in the first 40 years of the sport. Originally, not every point scored by a team or driver counted towards the World Championship. Some results would be dropped and not included in the final standings. For example, in the first season, only 4 results out of the 7 races were counted. The number of results stayed between 4 to 6 that were counted until 1966. Between 1967 and 1980, the system changed, with the season split into 2 for counting purposes. So a first half and a second half where one result would be dropped from the first half of the season and their worst result would be dropped from the second half of the season to form the final order. The Constructors' Championship stopped dropping points for the 1979 season and it has stayed the same ever since. From 1981, the split was removed and a more simple counting system was introduced, where the best 11 results were counted. This lasted until 1990. Imagine how different some seasons would be if this rule was still around and you could drop points. In 2005, Formula 1 had aggregate qualifying. On Saturday afternoon, every driver would do a lap on low fuel before another lap on Sunday, but this time on their race starting fuel. The times would then be combined to form the grid. This led to pole position times in excess of 3 minutes and a ridiculous 26-second gap between the top 16 cars on the grid during the season opening Australian Grand Prix because of wet-dry wet conditions in the Saturday session. This format was unsurprisingly dropped after just 6 races. Would you like to see any of these rules come back? If you enjoyed this video, drop a like and subscribe.